Welcome to another great episode of the Business Builder, Contractor Business Builder podcast. We have the honor of hosting Dean Dixon today. He is the co-founder of SmartStruct. He has 20 years of experience in construction, running his own businesses and in the construction fields. For co-founding SmartStruct, it's a powerful all-in-one platform designed to fix inefficiencies and the silent killer contractor profit. So things to watch out for. In this episode, we dive into how Dean turned years of boots on the ground frustration into a scalable tech solution that's helping builders take back control of their businesses. If you're tired of chaos, burnout, and broken systems, this episode is for you. Welcome here, Dean. How are you doing today?
Yeah, I'm great, thank you. And thank you for having me, Derek.
Yeah, excited to dive into all this. Can you give us a bit of a background on yourself in the construction industry and how that led to the creation of SmartStruct?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So we're based over in the UK. As you quite rightly said, I've had more than 2 decades in construction. I started originally in modular construction, so portable buildings, modular structures, education, office, custodial, MOD. And I suppose I've been through, all the elements of managing construction. I've never been a trade. Personally, my hands are way too soft for that. So I've always been, on the managing side, from site manager to project manager to commercial to operations. And, spending 15, 20 years working for somebody else, I decided that it was the right time to start a development company. So in residential, and it's been going 10, 15 years. We tend to build kind of high-end exclusive properties. For me, I'd spent so long, working with teams on site and seeing all the inefficiencies. I'm very data and process led. So, I'm always tinkering on how we can make the business more efficient. And, for our development company, we'd started off like every normal development company or builder and, spreadsheets. And we quickly realised during the build process that spreadsheets are great, and but ultimately you've got no connectivity to the site. Spreadsheets essentially just capture a starting point of cost, but beyond there, it's a game on site. So we started as a business to look at construction management softwares, and we was working with one for about 3 years. So that was kind of 5-6 years ago. And very quickly we identified that, having the ability to have a platform that implements those processes within our business to be able to capture, every stage from estimating all the way through to the stage of the build and, managing all the trades, budgeting, snagging, it transformed our business very, very quickly. So what led me on to SmartStruct is having looked at many, many different construction softwares. There are quite a few that do small little sections. So whether it's estimating or takeoff, whether it's snagging, whether it's budgeting or team management, there are actually very few in the marketplace that you can go to that provide a full suite. And, it's quite difficult because we actually looked at, individual softwares, and we felt that, to encourage adoption within our own team, but then beyond for the subcontractors and site team, when we're asking subcontractors to dance and jump from software to software, app to app, you tend to lose the adoption of all the trades. And unfortunately, whenever you lose, users of your software, you don't get the information or data that you need. So kind of the whole thing collapses. We spent, as I say, a good few years with one full suite software, but I think they've been operating for quite a while. And as customers are quite rightly given feedback, they bolted on, and then it was plug in API from other different softwares. And it got to a point where it started to feel counterintuitive in how we moved around the software, and from a workflow perspective, it wasn't that easy to transition from one stage of build to the next, but then also managing teams on site. So we believed there was a better way. And so we set out to build SmartStruct. So, rather than developing over years and years and ended up like a rabbit warren, we believe we've gone straight end game. We've learned from all the software companies out there. We've essentially taken all the best bits and improved some of the worst bits, and we've finished up with what is a great product.
Yeah, wonderful origin story. So many great product softwares stemming from exactly those issues. You've used the software, you've had the issues, you've seen the deficiencies, and you figured I can build a better one, right? And the world's been better ever since with SmartStruct. So with construction, there's so many moving parts. There's a lot of efficiencies that happen. What are some of the biggest efficiencies that you see contractors facing kind of on a daily basis with the operations of their business?
So beyond kind of the daily process of estimating, budgeting, generally, it's connectivity between office and site. And there's always that stigma attached between them and us, office and site, and trying to deliver the information to site and making sure that it's in real time is probably one of the biggest areas where we see inefficiencies within construction, is just that connectivity from office to site and making sure that the information that they need to be working from is up to date and accurate.
Yeah, definitely communication is so critically important, and something contractors aren't always known to have the best communication from time to time because you're busy, you got a million and one things to do. And there's so many people, so many suppliers, trades and everything, and keeping everybody up to date and informed and knowing what's going on is definitely a challenge, and a challenge that a good software like SmartStruct can help with. What are some maybe tips that you have as far as that information? Like obviously having the right processes to have that raw data for people to view, but as far as between the company or trades and sites, and how do you communicate, or some tips and tricks to better communicate with all the different team members and get the right information to the right people?
So it's about making sure that we have workflows within the platform that relate to both site and office, and that isn't always easy because the way that they look at things is completely different the way the office team look at things. So, making sure that it is in places that are, I suppose, make sense. That the terminology that we use in the office is the same as what's used on site, and therefore, if they need any level of information, it's easy to find within the system. They're not spending, hours, countless minutes on the mobiles trying to find the right specification.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. So at some stage in every business owner and general contractor, you want to grow, you want to scale, you kind of want to get typically you'll plateau somewhere. Often I find it depends on the annual revenue, but typically you've reached a point where the business owner can only handle so much, and maybe you've got some help, but you need to be like, in order to kind of get to that next level and get a team in place, there's a lot of challenges there. What do you see as, common mistakes or challenges from contractors? Maybe going more as like an owner operator, managing everything, to building a team that can kind of run and manage the business. What do you find the challenges there?
In terms of a business trying to scale up, without using a cliche in construction, it's about having the right foundations in place to build on.
Yeah.
And foundations is, in this example, is having the right systems and processes. And very quickly, people, teams, firms can assume that it's easy to just go and employ 10 more men, and therefore 10 more team members equals more profit. It isn't always the case, and ultimately you need those processes to be able to manage those team members, not just in terms of their workload, but documentation and quality standards. And quite often, teams will believe that they can just rein in a load of additional contractors and manage all those by phone and nothing else. So we find the biggest, issue that people have scaling really is having those processes in place to be able to manage all those contractors step by step.
Yeah, if you're already kind of overwhelmed or stressed out, and you add 10 more people to your organization, it's just, the wheels are going to fall off and things are going to get more chaotic if you don't have those processes and systems in place to be able to manage things. And I think as well, you kind of level up as a leader because you have to improve your leadership and your communication, your ability to kind of manage not being as, first person, I guess, on sites and talking with people. You need to be able to manage by using systems and processes and leadership with inside the organization.
And systems and processes definitely add a level of professionalism to the business as well. If you can demonstrate to a customer that you're not managing everything by a pad in your van, it's you've got a full process to manage the teams on site. Quite often when businesses are trying to scale up, usually you've got that business owner that is quite often on the tools when you've been recommended to another person. They're expecting to see Dave the builder on the site all the time, and therefore if Dave isn't on site, is it going to be the same job or quality standards? It's about reaffirming to the customer that it's still Dave the business behind the scenes. It's just Dave managing teams through a work process. So he's managing the construction project. It's still going to be done to their quality standards. It's just not that person physically on the tools anymore.
Yeah, definitely identified a good point there as far as clients come to expect, especially through referrals, that they're going to be very involved with the business owner, the contractor, and as you grow, you need to has to be more your brand. You're still there, and you're driving the culture and the business forward, but you're not
Yeah.
going to have as much face to face and be as involved with every client for sure. So one issue that definitely comes up as you want to scale the business is profitability, because typically you want to scale to make more money, but as you scale, your profitability generally goes down, which is counterintuitive maybe to some extent. But as a larger team, a little bit looser management or whatever, profitability can definitely be an issue. How does SmartStruct help with profitability, or what have you seen help with profitability for builders?
So generally, the estimating tool is slick and it's straightforward and simple to use. It allows anybody that's not even particularly tech savvy to be able to do a very quick, simple takeoff, giving them essentially a full detailed bill of quantities, without them being a quantity surveyor. Now, what that means is it's when they go into a project, even from an estimating perspective, they can feel comfortable that they've included everything that's necessary. But then that has, knock-on effects, positive knock-on effects that they can see by a detailed bill of quantities. It kind of identifies the phases of the builds, if you like, or the stages. So it gives them a clear path of the process to build, which helps. Now, beyond estimating, then it turns into budget. You can capture costs, every second, if you like. So again, it's fully transparent. And I'll use an example really that's where a lot of builders and trades and contractors fall short is having that ability to be able to do something about. So the example is, if by the time you've realized what you've spent, you've either received an invoice or you've received an invoice and paid that invoice. Now that could be 30 to 60 days after the material has physically been installed into the property, so you can't do anything about it. That money has been got spent. So having a system where you can accurately show a budget, a live budget, so you're allocating costs every day, and it kind of changes the process from managing your costs proactively as opposed to reactively. Where a lot of contractors and teams fall short in terms of losing profitability is all the areas where they can't see it. So kind of making the intangible tangible. Now, how often the builders, they'll stand on site and they'll go, when I estimated, I thought I could do this or not. A joiner will get a piece of wood and write all the materials down of what he needs next. Then he'll go to the builder's merchant. He'll get all the materials loaded in and he's waiting queue. Then he'll go in the queue itself inside, and then he'll be waiting at the checkout and counter. And then before you know it, you've lost 2 hours of a day. And quite often he'll need a hand, so he doesn't go on his own. He'll take his mate with him. And these are all costs that you could never allow for. And that's the intangible for me, is the time wasted in managing that element. Now, picture a scenario where you've estimated properly. You can see it outlined in a bill of quantities. You know what materials you need well in advance of you even starting the project. But when you're actually on the job, you can see it clearly from your phone. You bring it up and you go, I need these materials. You can send that to the merchant and say, can I have these materials delivered today, tomorrow, or whenever you need them? And all of a sudden, from a cost leakage perspective or losing profitability, you've now gained that 2 hours back doing what you should be doing and earning the money.
Yeah, I love that analogy. And I'm a big proponent of get your materials delivered, get an order together, or even just phone in an order and have a guy go pick it up, have one of your rookies take the truck and go grab stuff if really needed to. But yeah, being proactive with materials, and just put some delivery into your budget. If you're going to need, 5, 10, whatever deliveries on a project of materials, it gets guys thinking ahead too, like, hey, we're going to do a delivery tomorrow. What do we need in the next week or whatever? Instead of being, oh, we can run to the store and, kind of bugger off for an hour or two. And, every day it definitely adds up. And I totally understand too that it's really an eye opener once you start having, it's never 100% live as far as your expenses and budget, like your live costing or what have you, but it's pretty close. You can get there. And I found projects often look good until about maybe 70, 80%, 90%. And then you start to see where you start going over on costs and things like that. And it just creates a great feedback loop for your estimating. Once you have that job costing up to date, you can see, we overestimated or underestimated on, this part of the project or that part of the project. And it just makes a much more efficient and more accurate, financial health of the business, essentially. With getting all this stuff set up, and I know it can be very overwhelming, and people can feel stuck with everything that's going on, especially if you've been in business. I had a contractor comment on one of my videos the other day of, he wanted to give up the building game and get out of it because he had had enough, and it was, wearing him thin, I guess, and he'd been in it for 10 plus years and kind of felt stuck. What would be your advice, or how would you think about it if a builder out there feels like stuck or kind of fed up and just can't move forward and can't get ahead?
Usually, builders, contractors get overwhelmed, like everybody in everyday life, when you have too many things to think about. And it's about breaking those individual tasks down one by one and just ticking boxes. And where generally people feel overwhelmed is during a day you've already got enough to think about just in terms of the build process, but you've got clients ringing you, or they're on site, they're over your shoulder, asking questions and sending you emails, all that kind of stuff. And all of a sudden it can become the straw that breaks the camel's back. And so many people on the job are trying to manage all of that information in the mind. And how many times have you said you do something, or I must do that, or yeah, when I get around to it, it's all those kind of stuff. But by the time you've spent a full 8 hours doing the things that you're supposed to be doing, it's difficult to remember all the things that you said you was going to do. And running to the van for a pen and paper sometimes isn't that convenient. So having the ability to just pluck out your phone and just add yourself a task, and that task could be assigned to a particular person, or at any particular stage in the build. But it's about capturing all that information and then setting yourself reminders to make sure those things are done. And it could be tasks that are set by just a general to-do thing, or it could be a certain stage of build. It could be building control, coming to the warranty, coming to sign off that you need to do certain things. It could be capturing post those meetings things that we discussed. What you don't want to do is get too far down the build and trying to remember what he asked you to do to make sure that you're compliant, that you get your certificate, and then you're spending countless hours trying to ring him up and panicking, and there comes the overwhelming, really. So if you can just very quickly, conveniently document those tasks, and then at your convenience tick them off one by one, it just breaks it down and just prevents you from getting overwhelmed.
Yeah, as you said, I think a lot of overwhelm comes from being more reactive, things just kind of getting left or unorganized, and you get decision fatigue sets in. Everyone's, you're the bottleneck in the business. Everything runs through you, and of course you get overloaded in that regard. And I know it's easier said than done, obviously, but being proactive, trying to plan, schedule, think ahead. And I find if you're dealing with the same problems again and again and again, then that should be putting off alarm bells in your head. I need a system, I need a process, I need some way of doing this, some sort of standard to go upstream. Like if you're getting the same type of complaints from clients, or your guys are constantly not showing up, anything that's reoccurring, any kind of reoccurring problem, it's an opportunity to build some sort of process or system, or even just communicate and let your people know that, hey, this is an issue that we're dealing with. I can't be, fighting these fires every single day. We need to get some clarity around this problem, or whatever the issue may be.
I think everything about SmartStruct, or just construction management software in general, is yeah, absolutely, it helps you manage at the beginning, start, and end. But what people have to realise as well is that there's a lot of data that's collected all the way through the project, and therefore you can learn from that. You alluded to earlier where allocating costs to a particular build, if you've overestimated or underestimated, you can react to it proactively. But if you are employing subcontractors, and for example you can see at the end of the job that subcontractor has had more snags than anybody else, and they took longer to react than anybody else, unfortunately, you're not going to be working with that contractor anymore, because they're just not supporting your business in the way that you want. So, all of the process through SmartStruct is collecting information for you to be able to review the project afterwards, and then just help you evaluate quickly, rather than that, finger in the air, hand on heart. I'm pretty sure it's clear. You can see it light of day where the issues, there's some positives in there as well, things that you could use again, for example. But yeah, it identifies, what good looks like, but also where you can improve next time.
Yeah, really having that data, as you mentioned, and just knowing the numbers of a project by the numbers. There's no interpretation needed, essentially. Are you over? Are you under?
It's transparent.
and then figure out, what the reason is for that. So we talked about process and systems being so crucial and having, a good project management software like SmartStruct essential to a well-run business. Can you tell us maybe a bit more about which specific systems you find are the most beneficial or critical for builders kind of implement early on or when they kind of get started?
Estimating is key. You have to. Everything starts with an estimate. If you're not building your estimates properly, if you don't have the right method of estimating, if you're not capturing all the right costs, if it doesn't, break it down for you in the right way, you're not necessarily going to think of everything in that project. For teams, for contractors that are looking to potentially scale up, maybe look at that project that's just slightly larger, slightly more out of their comfort zone, and just looking at an old-fashioned drawing on the table and trying to assume everything that's needed within that project is impossible. So, estimating software is key. It kind of sets the tone for the rest of your project. So I would absolutely say estimating. And, and then that moves on to the budget element, really. Within SmartStruct, an estimate converts straight into a budget. So then you can start accruing costs immediately. So every time you're raising a purchase order or a commitment to a merchant or subcontractor, you're accruing those costs. And I think if you haven't got the right method of tracking costs, you'll get in trouble quite quickly. And, accountancy softwares are great, but accountancy softwares are, for accountants that are looking at your numbers, well after you've already spent them. That's for year-end stuff, but that's where you need a can track budgets, day by day, and that's absolutely critical.
Estimating is so primary to everything else that happens as far as budget, efficiency, profitability. If you're out on your estimate, it doesn't matter how efficiently you run a project, you can't make that money back if you've forgotten things or your margins are too low and things like that.
Document storage is a big one, and quite often you'll receive tenders which are made up of a million different pages. Quite often some things that aren't even relevant to you. So having the ability to be able to store the documents in a place where you can find them easily. And, we've all got OneDrives and Dropbox and all that kind of stuff. But if you're not setting your folders up correct, this is away from a construction management software. But if you have or subscribe to these document storage, and quite often you can just have this absolute one folder with a massive documents where you can spend ages and ages just looking for the right piece of information. And where we found in past is, and what we've evidently built into SmartStruct is, the revisions of drawings. And quite often, you see so many printed drawings on site, and we've seen it in past where, a site manager, project managers, seeing an old set of drawings floating around in a bricklayer's van, for example, and like, oh my God, you built to the wrong drawing. So, having ability, which we've got in SmartStruct, is every time you drag and drop, it recognizes an old drawing and immediately creates a revision. It archives the old, supersedes with the new, and it's in a particular place. You create your folder setup that's foundations or masonry, all that kind of stuff. You drag your drawings in, so that when you want a specific drawing for a particular phase of the build, you can very quickly, within seconds, arrive at the right drawing, knowing it's at the right revision, so you're building to the right set of drawings. So document storage is king.
Yeah, always an awkward conversation when the client's asking why something's in a certain spot, and it's due to someone just having an old drawing, or the specification was a little bit off or what have you. So yeah, file storage, super important. And it's actually fairly simple to get set up. I mean, you just have a standard folder structure for every client, and every client has their own folder. And inside that folder, you're going to have different folders, plans, finances, budgets, photos, whatever. Just create your folder structure and have it consistent for every new client that you have or every new project.
We have.
Go ahead.
We have folder templates or structures. So if somebody wanted to use a document template storage, then essentially there is a preset template for every stage of the build within residential or commercial. But absolutely, you can set your own folder structure up so it's more specific to you if you wish.
Yeah. Perfect. Now, with technology comes implementation. I mean, with systems comes implementation. Contractors have been doing it one way for 5 or 10 or 20 years. Not easy to move over and change habits and get people out of what they're used to. How would you approach, implementation or adoption of new technology or new software systems inside, a construction business, especially at the kind of the field site level?
I think for smaller teams that aren't necessarily familiar with construction management management softwares that are trying to scale up. I think to a certain extent, they know they need it. And, they believe, wholeheartedly that it would be a benefit to their business. But they worry whether they've got the time to implement the software. I would argue the fact that you can't afford not to spend that time, because you'd be losing time hand over fist, whether it's tangible or intangible. You'll be wasting time. That's why you're looking at construction management software in the first place. So I would say for somebody that's going to go from nothing into construction management software, I think you've just got to rip the band-aid off and just get on with it. And from our perspective, we have an onboarding which shows you through the entire software is training, and it teaches you step by step every stage of the management software itself. So we have a structured 8 to 10 onboarding session. So we can send you templates for you to populate, and then they drag and drop with an import. So if you are running budgets on current jobs that are running on Excel, we'll just import into our template, and all your budget information can be transferred over in minutes, and same folders, so we can show you how and what good looks like in terms of a folder structure. But there's an element of you're here for a reason, and therefore it's just got to go through and endure and just get on with it and implement it within your business. So, but guarantee, take it from me, from my experience implementing it into a developed company, I'm getting feedback from all our customers, however small, and we genuinely have one-man bands up to tier 2s and tier 3 contractors. So we see a full spectrum of how people implement it into their business. And, even if they're currently using existing software, to be able to transfer over from one to another, again, we have specific template imports that we just export their data from one software, and within minutes, their whole previous system is on ours. So, actually, we're already using software to transfer over to ours is easier. Contractors that are looking to get on board with a new construction management software, new process to start off with, we've got all the guided support that they need. Beyond that, we have a learning portal where they can do some quizzes, watch some videos, and then at a later date, if they need to revert back to it, then they can quick search, and then within a few seconds they can learn how to do a particular task. But generally speaking, it's pretty self-intuitive, so to navigate around is pretty simple and straightforward, and you pick it up pretty quickly. It's designed for that thumbs on site, so
definitely, built by contractors and with the experience of contractors, and like anything new, it's a matter of getting in there, making a go of it, and just realizing that it's going to take a little while till everything is 100% smooth, especially when you've got a larger team involved and things like that. But just, of course, reiterating kind of the reason why you're putting this new initiative in place and create efficiencies and better communication and make people's jobs and lives easier, and strengthen the business, and all those good things. And from there, it's just a matter of maybe being a little bit, I find there's just, you got to kind of remind people a little bit more, and just kind of support and coach them through, using the software. And typically speaking, some people pick it up very quick with new software. Some people need reminders, and it takes a month or two till they're in the habit of using it. But then once they get a hang of it, it's just becomes another day, day on the job, and another thing to do that they can use, another tool to utilize, essentially.
The thing with SmartStruct is for people that haven't necessarily used construction management software. We've set up all the templates within folder structures or estimating. So, for anybody to get started, they could pick it up quite easily and use all our templates. Now, bear in mind that these templates and structures and estimating process has been designed around construction companies. So, it forces good process, but to pick it up quite quickly, everything is in place for you to be able to use from day one.
Yeah, perfect. Can you give us like a real life example of a company or business owner that's started on SmartStruct, and kind of a bit of a journey, and how it's influenced how they build and their business?
Yeah, so I'll give you one quick example, then I'll give you a slight level. We've got a very small contractor looking to scale up, and he received a tender for a project based on recommendation, but the project was 4 or 5 hours away. And he realized that it would be a great step forward for him for this project, but he just didn't know how to manage that kind of level of finance and number of trades on site that's from a distance. So he implemented SmartStruct, and he managed to go out to tender to all the subcontractors, And, he'd estimated using part of his own estimates and then using some of the subcontractors' quotes to import, which formed the budget, was able to add his margins on quite easily, send it over, won the project. And then he was able to instruct and issue contracts to, all the trades essentially that he's not worked with before. And, as part of the process, and his contracts to the subcontractor, he requested that they take photos, which they just upload on a daily basis at the end of every day to show progress. And it allowed him to manage this contract 4 or 5 hours away quite easily. He went once every 2 weeks to site, he said, and the customer was overwhelmed by the quality standards and how the project was on target time wise and also on cost. There wasn't any extras quoted, and he gave the client a login into SmartStruct, so we can set certain areas that you can show the customer, only the things that you want them to see, but ultimately the customer a few times to start off with, but then beyond that, he said that once that trust was developed, he could log into SmartStruct and see the photos being added every day. So he didn't need to go. So therefore, the customer felt comfortable that he could see progress. So it allowed a very small contractor to be able to take on that next project with ease, managing from a distance and being able to manage quality standards. But a big one really is, I was chatting to director of a company that's a developer that we've had for over a year now, and I just caught up to see how he was getting on. He recognised that pre-construction management software, he could just sense that the cost leakage was just phenomenal, and there was just so much firefighting. And when people are generally busy, the easiest thing for any team to do is just to say, we need more staff. And he took the opportunity whilst he was implementing SmartStruct to almost take his business back down to ground zero and look at every process and implement and build up from there, even though it was an established company. He himself and some of his team members was getting 100 plus calls a day. And he just said there were so many inefficiencies, and all these calls that he'd already had 3 times before. It was duplication of content and people asking for updated drawings. And so, I caught up with him. It was quite overwhelming for me to see and to know how much of a difference it made to this developer. So he's been able to scale up from 1 site to 3 sites in the last 18 months. So he's nearly doubled his turnover. And the big one for him is, even though he could feel hand on heart that he had this cost leakage, he's been able to physically see it now through his budget. He's been able to capture it, proactively do something about it. Now he's actually, even though he's doubled his turnover, he's been able to increase gross margins by 18%, which is just incredible.
Yeah. Oh, that's fantastic. Great to hear that success. And it shows like the ability to make decisions are just so much better when typically you'll have a feeling, you kind of know maybe you're losing money here or this isn't efficient, but you don't have numbers. You can't really see, is it an issue or does it just feel like an issue? When you have that budget in place, you have the software, it becomes very evident where there's breakdowns in the process or the budget or, where money's going and things like that. So very inspiring stories for both of those, and a reason why to get a solution like SmartStruct in place before you try to grow or scale or do a new project that's a bit farther away or what have you. So that's fantastic. For people wanting to get started with SmartStruct, we'll put a link in the description below to the website. What does that look like? What should they do first to check it out or sign up?
Yeah, simple, straightforward. So go to the website, smartstruct.com, and there's a demo request page. So just click on a demo, pick a date or time to suit you. We have teams that work in different time zones. So if it's UK, America, or beyond, we can do demos. Take about 30 to 45 minutes, which gives you a real good flavour of every part of the system. And we try and have a pre-call just so we can tailor the demo to you, just get an understanding of flavour of what you're looking to achieve, some of the pain points, and then we can show you how SmartStruct can really help.
Yeah, definitely wonderful. So if you're not using a project management software, or you feel like maybe yours isn't quite up to the standard that you'd like it to be, go click the link in the description there, jump on a demo and see what SmartStruct's all about. So any last words of wisdom or last kind of thing you wanted to mention, Dean?
I definitely feel that if you are even a small business that's looking to scale up, having construction management software like SmartStruct in your armory will definitely help you have greater visibility, reduce stresses genuinely, prevent the firefighting, give you full visibility, and it allows you to stick your head above the parapet and actually run your business rather than running in your business. And, that gives you a clear view of what's next. And so it's absolutely well worth having a software implemented with your business.
Wonderful. Yeah. Thanks so much for coming on here, Dean. It's, a wealth of insights from yourself. And contracting is hard. The construction industry is hard, but it really doesn't need to be. There are, better ways, and working on the business and getting the right tools and systems in place can really set you apart and help you get to where you want to go. So thanks so much for coming on here, Dean. It's been a pleasure.
No, thank you.